And welcome back to another episode of Foot Traffic. Today, we are going to be talking about the behind the scenes of a virtual event that we just put on the week of May 19th. It was a 2-day event about 9 to 3, and we're going to be sharing all the things that went into place. We had a lot of people who were in our Foot Traffic Formula program, watched it, and then wanted to know more about how we put it on, how they could do this for their business, their industry. And there's so many different types of industries that could be utilizing this right now. Virtual is becoming more and more popular, and it's not going to be going away anytime soon as people still feel uncertain. So welcome, Stacy Tuschel here. And I'm going to be going behind the scenes to our 2-day event that just happened called the Biz Blitz. So we had, like I said, it was about 9 to 3, and it was 10 different guest experts that came in to a private program that we have. And this could be something you do, whether it's private or it's public, right? Just something you want to do for fun, for free. Some of the people in my Foot Traffic Formula program said, we wanted to get together some people in like the children's industry and do something together. There's somebody in there that teaches like kids pottery and kids cooking and dance and gymnastics and all of these different things. And they were deciding like maybe we could do something like this. So I want you thinking outside the box. How can you do something like this for your specific industry? Okay. All right, so it was definitely a huge success, which is why I wanted to go behind the scenes and share more information with you, okay? So number one, the structure I just kind of shared. Now, I will tell you that one thing I want you to be aware of, if you bring people in, I loved having our guest experts there for 45 minutes. They either presented for 30 minutes and then did a 15-minute Q&A so people could come live, show up, ask questions. I think that was key. I will tell you that as a speaker, I had a lot of speaking events on my calendar for March, April, May that have been canceled, and I actually didn't present any of them live. They had me send in a pre-recorded video to present. I can tell you right now that is nowhere near as, I would say, as an amazing experience as having your guest experts show up live. So that would be a big one, I would say, is really get them there live if you can, because it's so nice to be able to have that live interaction, the follow-up questions, having it relevant. I was recording videos that were 4 to 5 weeks prior to when I was speaking, and things are moving so quickly that I can't guarantee that content is going to be relevant 4 weeks from now, right? Whereas when you do it live, it will be. So that was big. We did 45-minute segments back to back. And then we had 2 15-minute breaks, like earlier in the day and then later in the day, and a 45-minute lunch break. I will tell you the one thing that I would change for next time, and we are going to do this again for our Foot Traffic Formula members because it just was such a good way. And we called it a blitz, and that's what it felt like. It felt like we were giving you so much good content so quickly for then you to take it and grab what you wanted and go, right? So the only thing that I would make a change for myself was the lunch break being 45 minutes. If I think about it now, the only person that needed a break was me because the speakers just came in one time and they left, right? The people watching, it was a webinar, so they weren't on camera, which I loved that aspect for them. I was just in a virtual event where I was on camera for 2 days, and you're like making lunch and doing all these things, and it was just better not having being on camera, I think, for them. So one of the things that I am going to do next time is really just make that lunch break 30 minutes because I found myself sitting here waiting 15 minutes prior to just kind of get back into the swing of things. So that would be the one difference I'd made. As far as who we had come and speak and what you would do specifically. So first of all, with this, I had 5 peers, 5 friends that I have connections with that I really kind of looked at. What are my students interested in? What are they going to want to hear about? Who are they going to want to hear from? And who do I have access to? Who could I personally message or reach out to, right? So I will say I had 5 friends I immediately thought of. I reached out to all 5. They all said yes. Now, that might be different for you. You might not have as warm of connections as you're looking for. It might take a few more tries, right? You might be doing something and branching out for the first time, and you might have to ask 20 people to get 4. Okay. So I do want you to be aware of that. And then I invited 5 of our powerhouses. So my powerhouse mastermind is a higher level mastermind that we do all year long. These women that are in the program are phenomenal. They are truly powerhouses, which is where the name came from. And I knew that they had so much to share. So we had 5 of them come in. So a total of 10 experts. And then myself, I was more of the MC. I was really there to facilitate, to make sure that when a speaker came in, they were really aware of who my audience was, what they would need. If there was a disconnect with any of the content, I was there to prompt them with a question and get them back on track, to, maybe like, oh, they're going off of this way, or most people listening are these people. I'm going to ask this to make sure that they kind of get it, and it's a better experience for both people involved, right? A speaker doesn't want to be speaking above the head of everybody listening or to the completely wrong target market, right? And the person listening wants it to be relevant to him or her, right? So that's kind of what it looks like. Now, I would say half of the room presented for 30 minutes and did a Q&A at the end. The other half just did 45 minutes of Q&A, okay? Now, as far as like cost or what you should charge if you were to do an event like this yourself, we strategically did it where it was only for our members of our foot traffic formula. I love the book, The One Thing, and I really wanted to focus on my one thing this year, which is the foot traffic formula. So I wanted to enhance the already existing program and not try to like get off track and sell something different. So we instead used it as a bonus for our current people. So I want you to think about that. What is your one thing? Don't let me give you shiny object syndrome, but maybe it can enhance already a program you have, or just warming up more leads, whatever that looks like for you specifically, okay? So we didn't charge because it was included as a bonus, but we definitely could have charged. People messaging us nonstop saying, how do I buy? How do I get to this, etc. And we would say, you have to be a member, sign up here. This is where you can get in, right? Now, I will say this, after it's over, some things that I've kind of been thinking about, I haven't done anything yet, but I could definitely see myself reselling it after it's over, selling the replay, I should say. I can definitely use it as a bonus for future people coming in. So if somebody joins in 2 weeks, they're going to go get access to watch the replay and have that, right? So that's something to do. I think next time I might sell it a la carte with like the no-brainer option to jump in the program, but still like just giving people that little taste, right? So that's something to be thinking about, okay? Prep time. This is another question people want to know. How long does this take you? Like, how much are you preparing for it? Now, as somebody who has done in-person events and online events, the prep time is nothing compared to in-person. The big difference for me was I knew heading into this that I wasn't going to be able to be writing brand new trainings and having completely brand new speeches. So I knew I would be better off as the MC hosting it and pulling things out. As a podcaster, I interview all the time. So I'm very, very used to, on the spot asking questions. So that's how I set it up. Now, you may want to have standalone trainings. You may want to be presenting most of the time, but you need to take into consideration the prep time. And do you have time to really deliver, okay? The reason I think this was so good was because we had 10 amazing people who had to present 45 minutes and really 30 minutes, right? So they came and they gave it their all. And the collectiveness of having everybody do that is what made it so special versus me trying to cram, 16 hours of fresh content into something like this, okay? So, and then the prep time besides that was me reaching out. Like I said, mine was a little bit easier. I am somebody who is constantly building relationships and nurturing those relationships when I meet people at events and things like that, right? So there wasn't much prep time. I did a little intro on day 1, a little wrap up at the end, and then same thing on day 2. I kind of came back and what's everybody's biggest takeaways? We talked, we did some Q&A, and then a very small wrap up at the end of day 2. For me, again, the prep wasn't that much because I'm used to jumping on and doing Facebook Lives, jumping on and presenting, right? Off the cuff. So I don't have to put as much into it as maybe you will if you're not used to being on camera, not used to doing interviews, you haven't built those relationships, right? All things to be thinking about so you can start doing things like this specifically, okay? All right, let's go to in-person versus online since I just brought that up. So here are the pros and cons that I want to talk about. I think, first of all, if you're thinking, I was supposed to have an event, or typically we do this big event, we do this big fundraiser, we do fill in the blank, right? And now you're thinking, but great, now it has to be virtual. First of all, it's all in your messaging, your language, your tone. The more you come at it in a really fun, excited way, the more your customers or potential customers will feel that energy. Okay. So, first of all, why an in person event versus, or I should say, why online versus in person, the pros and cons. Okay. Now, this thing was never, the Biz Blitz was never a real in person event. We did it as a bonus, right? But if you're swapping, I want you to see that you can still spin it because they get the recording. How many times do you go to an event or a conference or something and you wish you had access to it again and again and again, right? There are so many things you could be thinking about here, and that is a big one. Not leaving your house, not having to fly and pay for airfare, get a hotel, get Ubers, all of the expenses of eating out and everything, right? And then getting to watch the replay later. There are so many perks to turning your event virtual, and not just for you, but for your customers, right? Now, yes, they miss out on networking. However, the intent of my Biz Blitz was not to network and meet people. The intent was to come and get all this inspiration so you can get back on track and move forward in your business. So maybe you have to change the messaging of the, fundraiser that you typically held, or the big, farmers market, whatever it is you were specifically doing. What is the new messaging? Because yes, there are going to be different things that they're coming for. So you will have to sell it differently to your audience. Even if it's free, you're still like selling the idea, right? So I want you to think about that. Now, as far as expenses go, we've done a live event every year for the past 4 years, I think 4 years in a row, and they cost tens of thousands of dollars. Okay, I'm here in Wisconsin, and that's where I hold mine. If you're in California, I have friends that spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, it depends where you're from. So with that said, though, this event that we did virtually, it was practically free. I mean, there was very little expenses that needs to be tied into this, okay? So I really, really want you to see the pro of doing it yourself and hosting it yourself, okay? Now, the one negative that I know about from both aspect, in person and online, is these people watching could be totally checked out, not even really watching, not participating. However, okay, so that's an option. So you have to think about that. How do you get them there live? How do you engage? How do you sell it to show up? Not just sell it to get them to buy it, but then how do you sell it where it's like, you've got to be here and you've got to be here live, right? So that's something to think about. Now, I will say they were super engaged, and the people that were there were already taking action, making those moves, and that was really nice to see. Now, what I want you to understand is, if it's a recording or something they can go back and watch later, keep selling the idea of watch the replay, go back and watch it again. What are your biggest takeaways? Fill me in, all of that good stuff, okay? Inside of our Foot Traffic Formula, our paid members Facebook group, our team was in there at the same time asking, what's your biggest takeaway from this session? What did you just learn? What are you going to do? So sometimes the Zoom chat can be lost, right? Or after you watch the replay, it's not there. But in our Facebook group, our members were able to engage and see who was doing the same takeaways and who was working on the same projects, so they could connect and have that community there. Thank you, Brittany. She says it was amazing. So yes, definitely something that, and it was so good because as a team, we always have our lessons learned. So, great question on should speakers be paid? I'm going to get to that in 1 second. So, this is why I cannot interrupt myself, because I'm like, what was I just saying? Okay, remind me what I was just saying. I'm going to go into this question, or let me just glance. Oh, this is what I was going to say. My team wrote a little thing and it said lessons learned day 1. And we did not write down anything after day 1. And I'm like, that is incredible that it was the first time we did this. We had no lessons learned. We felt like it went off without a hitch. It was after day 2 that I was like, well, I would shorten the lunch break by 30 minutes, which isn't going to affect my attendees. It basically affects me. And I would rather jump back into it and keep going. So, I love it. We attended every session, was invigorating. I love this. Okay. Do speakers expect to be paid for virtual events? I know your speakers were friends, but if you don't have the right friends and have to ask outside your circle, what would you expect to pay for a virtual speech? I love this. Okay. So good. So first of all, it is very common in this world that we live in, right? Where you will go and do something for free for the visibility's sake. So for today, for instance, how many of you know what social media marketing world is? Social media marketing examiner. I am going into their paid membership, and I'm going to be teaching, doing some office hour stuff later today. I am ecstatic that they asked me, right? Like that to me is great. It's great visibility. People will jump on. They'll have never heard of me before. They'll find my brand. It could lead to sales, right? I am happily going to do that for free. Okay. Now, so please know that you might not even know somebody and they would still come on and do this for free, right? So even my podcast, when I interviewed Susie Orman, Dave Hollis, I didn't pay any of those people. They did it for free. Why? Because they want the visibility of my audience, right? So, now that said, some people will never do it not being paid, right? They have a flat fee and they will tell you what it is, okay? So you could always pitch somebody asking if they would be willing to do it. I don't even know if you would need to bring up. You could just say, like, I'm looking to have an expert come in for this. It's, give the details. Would you be interested? And then you can let them decide if they're going to do it and have a fee or something like that. What I suggest is find somebody who's in a similar situation as you where you could just swap, right? You could do this for them and maybe, or I should say they could do this for you and then you can help them in some way as well, all right? So typically, a lot of times, no, I would say most people do not expect to get paid. We don't get paid for podcasts. It's rare that you get paid for virtual speaking. If it was actually for like an event, you were coming in person, yes, you probably still got the funds. I'm sure things like that were still happening. However, when it's something where it's like a quick 30-minute pop in, pop out, a lot of times it's not paid. Okay. Which is why though, and I think too, you have to realize, I have paid to get in certain circles, right? Like you've seen me invest in myself, invest in group coaching and masterminds and programs and all of these things. And what happens when I go into these programs or masterminds is I meet certain people. So a lot of the people that you saw, I had met from being in masterminds with or other circles. So I maybe I didn't pay them, but I definitely paid for those connections in the beginning. And then it's on me to create genuine relationships. Okay. Love this. Okay. The platform, we used Zoom webinar. Now, I do not like the idea of Zoom meeting for something like this. I cannot stand when I'm on Zoom meeting and there's a presenter talking and somebody jumps on and they're unmuted and they're literally screaming at their kids like, I said no, you're going to do it later. Like, I am not kidding when I have told you or heard people screaming at their children, like yelling at somebody, talking to somebody in the background. They have no idea they're being seen, that they have no idea they're being heard. It's distracting for everybody. Or their dog is barking, right? So for us, we use Zoom webinar, which means you could only see the presenter, so myself, and the speaker, I should say. Besides the two of us, nobody was ever visible, and you could only hear us, right? So the presenter came on just like an attendee would. I could see they were there. I invited them on my screen, and then I put them back in there after it was over. Make sense? So that's what I would say. Now, Zoom webinar is $40 a month, I believe, okay? Yeah, a toilet flushing. Thank you. I'm not kidding when I'm sure all of us have heard this, right? I have a client who did a Zoom meeting. The person thought it was a Zoom webinar and she turned on the computer and she was in her bathtub, completely naked, taking a bath, right? So I just think it's better for everybody when it's webinar. It's more professional. It's only $40, I believe, for up to 100 people watching. And you can cancel it after the month. So you could have it for $40, do this, and cancel it and be done, okay? So that's what I want you to see when it comes to that. Now, one tip that I want to share that worked really well, and this is great for later. We stopped the recording after every single session. So I was able to easily reference it later and have my members easily reference it. So it would say something like Facebook Live with Jennifer Allwood, Instagram with Tyler McCall, YouTube with Sean Cannell, right? So later, if somebody wants to go back to watch Sean, they can easily find him. Maybe somebody comes in and as a new member and they see the replay and they don't know who Sean is, but they're really interested in YouTube, right? So do you see how I even put the topic before the person's name? because somebody might not be interested in YouTube, but love Sean and want to go watch his video because they love following him online, right? So we did that, and now it's going to be stored. It's stored in our Kajabi members portal for all of our active members to be able to go watch and reference and grab whatever they need. Because when you have 10 sessions and 10 speakers, you don't need every one of those sessions right now. Right? So maybe Sarah Brown, who talked about referrals, maybe you liked her content, but you're not ready for this big referral program yet. You're still driving traffic. But in 6 months from now, you're like, wow, I have a lot of customers and it's time I put a referral policy into place, and I am going to go back and watch that session. Then you're going to have it there. Okay. All right, you guys. So I really want to make sure you know next week, Monday, we are kicking off the Foot Traffic Formula Workshop. Lots of tweaks. You know, I'm always making changes. Day one is completely revamped. I'm going to have my whiteboard behind me, drawing all over it. So make sure to be in the Facebook group and watching this live. It's in a pop-up group, not our big one, okay? Go to stacytuschel.com/workshop. When you go to put your name and email in, the second page will have the link to the Facebook group. Go in there, get in there. We kick off Monday. Lots of great content coming your way. You are not going to want to miss it. All right, I'll see you soon.